So, first of all, tell us your name and a little bit about yourself.
Okay, my name's Michael Kolloumbras, Michael Stelios Kolloumbras. Um, I am who I am, and I moved down from London. I was born and live in the UK all my life. My mum and dad are Greek Cypriot. My mum was born in the UK. My dad moved here when he was 10 because of the Cypriot and Turkish division that was going on back then,
Okay.
sadly. So he was a young uh, boy. They moved over here. I moved down from London with my parents into Westgate-on-Sea, which is walking distance to Margate. Um, so I've lived in Westgate-on-Sea ever since. And at 13 years old, we actually moved into this flat where I am now as a
Yep.
family. Downstairs is a barber shop where I became a barber from the age of 14.
Is that a family tradition? Like your
Yeah,
father's a barber as well? Okay.
yeah. And my dad's eldest brother, my Uncle Andrew, my beautiful Uncle Andrew, um, he was kind of the father figure because they moved over, and sadly their father passed away a year later because of the pain. He actually did turn around and say, "You're not going to see me again," and sure
Okay.
enough, drank himself away with pure alcohol. Within the year, he passed away, and he wasn't like that. He wasn't a drinker. He just couldn't take the family separation.
So you experienced that loss quite early in life, yeah, for someone that you loved?
Oh, many losses, yeah,
Yeah.
and this, in all different, um, in all different ways. So yeah, so Uncle Andrew was a barber. He taught my dad. He taught my dad's youngest brother, Uncle Chris, which I also lost. He was like, he used to just love me like his own son. So he used to, take me when I was like 3 years old, and I used to go around his house. And we lost him when I was 4, I think. He passed away in a car crash. Um, and you know, so yeah, I've been there was they were all barbers,
Okay.
and yeah, and my cousins got taught this. There's many Michaels in the family.
Of course.
Yeah,
Just a question. This is just as an aside, a funny aside. Your dad's shop, was it one of those modern shops? It was one of those, what I might call a typical Greek kind of shops where you've got those black and white photos of men with haircuts that no one has anymore.
right. That's spot on.
Yeah.
Right, the black and white photos were there that no one has anymore. Yes, we had them up.
Okay, I know the kind of shop. I'm feeling it.
The only way that I can describe my shop is the way that others used to describe our shop, and that was because there used to be my dad and my cousin was in partnership, and then there was me sweeping up, making tea and coffee, learning how to cut hair. Watch
Apprenticeship.
and listen. Yeah, watch and listen. Don't speak. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? I mean that was like always. My dad used to bring me up like that. Whenever we're talking, I just want you to listen. Don't interrupt. Just make sure that you listen. Okay. And I've been listening for many years, and I only just, started to actually talk.
Well, you've got a lot to let out. You're a very interesting character. I won't give nothing away because there's nothing to give away. We've just met, and I like what you're into. It's very interesting, and I'm sure many of the viewers would like it the same. So, like many quiet people, it's a trait that I've noticed. I don't know if it's a fact, but well, no, there are no facts. But people who listen take a lot in, and then when they're ready to let it out, there's a hell of a lot to let out. And listening is quite a skill that people have lost in our modern day. Everyone wants to say their piece, and they don't even let people finish. I do it with my closest friends because we allow that of each other. But with new people, I think people should really start learning that skill of listening. You listen, take it in, and then you respond, rather than just wait for them to finish so you can say your piece. But moving on, you're a man who knows much and has many topics. Pick a topic and let's go. What do you want to share with us today?
Well, let's talk about. I mean, my passion. If I'm gonna pick, it's always gonna go to music. My
Okay.
passion, my passion is sound. I love sound. Not necessarily music. I just love sound. Like I can hear now a vehicle passing through, and the sound that is coming off the tires because I can hear water coming from because it's been raining, and that sound of water is just that is beautiful to
I'm
me.
the same with sound, Michael. It's like I make lots and lots of music, but I'm not a musician. I started off just learning all of the frequencies and about sound frequencies, and I used to just put things together. I had like a recording package. It was Cubase back in the day, and I just put these sounds together. And people saying to me, "That sounds really good," even though it wasn't a song. And I used to say to them, "That's because I'm making frequencies. This is like 80 hertz. This is where a kick drum might sound, and then 120 hertz for the bass, and so on." And I put all these sounds in particular places on the spectrum, and then I started learning to play melodies with them. And then I thought, oh, let's learn music and chords and notes and melodies, and started putting them all together. And I'm still not a great musician, but it's my personal diary, and I can sit back sometimes and I think, that's what I was trying to say. And with the ability to listen not only to people speaking but to music, the same as you, I can hear a car go past and I'll differentiate between the tyres, what type of surface it's moving on, the rumbling of the plates, and so on. So sound's a very deep part of you, obviously. So tell us a little bit more.
Okay, I mean, really, I was always fascinated with sound from a child. If I saw anyone playing an instrument, I would be mesmerised, and I would sit there and I would just be in a zone, just fascinated by the way these sounds were coming from his fingers or her fingers, and or however they were, expressing this instrument and themselves, and so therefore. Sound has a huge impact on the way I felt and the way we feel. And so sensitive. I am so sensitive to sound. And of course, now I have developed a clear understanding of how sound really does affect us in the words that we say, in the words that we use towards each other. For example, a friend of mine actually had a 2-year-old daughter, and he called her a monkey, and she screwed her face up. And I said, "You're not a monkey," and I called her name, and her face lit up.
Excellent. Yep.
Yeah, and so therefore, and no one's really paying attention to the corresponding effects that these, not words, but the frequencies and the meaning, how they affect us. So quite frankly, it's a very deep subject, so deep that I was thinking about, how things are constructed with sound, and then I discovered that actually frequency is everything.
I
Frequency.
discovered that as well, Michael, as part of my journey, because I saw a phrase that once said that words are spells, and spells are actually writing is spelling. And it interested me. So I did do some research, and I realised that there's a whole complexity around language, especially the English language, and the fact that English is a control language, which is something that you know about also. And I can see the magic of the frequencies rather than just the words. And I think it's important that we choose the words that we use, even for meditation, and chanting and so on. Even prayers work in a sense, and the power of words cannot be understated. So share us a little bit more about the magic of words.
Okay, well, I have actually, I've been writing. I've just gotten all these things off of my head with these things. So I have written something called the application of words,
Excellent.
and yeah, and in that is really it's actually directed to teenagers because like the frequency related aspect to the way the words are formulated with the letters used are calculated.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so therefore, and I recognize that actually music and sound frequency is we only hear 20 to 20,000 hertz. That is our 2020 range of hearing and seeing.
I spoke about that last night's show, actually. Yeah, 20,000. Yeah.
Yeah. And so therefore, if that is a spectrum that is housed within that spectrum of 20 to 20, what is outside of that? What is going on outside of that we can't hear? And like we just said earlier on, with these frequencies that we can't hear, that animals can, how are they being affected? I know that we can live through these things, but yet they are altering our own energy, our own frequency. They could be having a positive effect or a detrimental effect, either or. we are definitely being affected.
Yes, I was talking last night about infrasound actually, and lower than 20 hertz, because some people can hear just slightly under and slightly above 20, up to 22 and so on. And they claim that we use the upper range of our hearing after 30 years of age. And there is some truth in that, because I'd often sit in the house with my niece and nephew when they were very young, and they'd go, "Uncle, your phone's ringing," because it used to have this gradual tone that built up, and they always heard it, way before I did. But with infrasound, they use it in horror movies. They use it in the Razorhead, for instance, David Lynch, and even Alfred Hitchcock used it in The Birds. It wasn't actually him; it was the sound engineers. But when they use those frequencies lower than 20, we can't actually hear them, but we perceive them in our bodies and so on. And for a percentage of people, and it's not that high actually. They claim it's only 22 to 30%, but it creates feelings of unease. And unsettling and so on. So they play those low frequencies in horror films, and then people feel that it was the actual film visually that affected them. But those sounds are around us all the time, and I think they're detrimental to health.
And I'm feeling them at the moment, and I am not comfortable with them, and I know that they are, causing me. My breathing is different.
Right.
My thinking is different. How I feel is different. They're not affecting me in a positive way. They're in a detrimental way. I don't like to have. I don't actually have a smartphone for one of two reasons. There are two reasons there. One, because of the frequency related aspect. I am sensitive to when I touch them. I mean, this laptop that I'm on now, the trackpad, directly underneath the trackpad, there is the wireless card. So when I put my finger on that, I am getting really, I'm getting affected so negatively that I do not touch that, and I don't keep it near me anyhow. So I use a mouse. I mean, why place it directly underneath a trackpad? It's obvious.
You're a sensitive soul, and this is what I started my show off with last night about this sensitivity. And people sometimes see that as negative, especially for males. Oh, you're a sensitive man, and so on. And by sensitive, what I mean is not that somebody just reacts as an emotional, immature response to somebody using words or frequencies, even though we've just discussed they do have an effect, but to our surroundings. And we know, people say, "Oh, but the scientists saying that." We don't need the scientists for this. If we stay in touch and we are sensitive, we know what's good or bad for us, whether it's food with the knowledge that's been passed down, whether it's through vibration, through sound of words, whether it's just visually seeing actions, or sound, hearing those negative vibrations around us.
I mean, that's kind of what I have wrote in this document, is that if the worst thing that we could do um, is to go upon what somebody else tells us. Instead, what we should do is be in tune and follow our nose. And that saying "follow your nose" is because there is a huge sensory, biological aspect of our nose. For example, if we are in tune, we do not need a man-made map, or we do not need a satellite navigation system to actually go and find a pinpoint location anywhere in the world if we are in tune with the sensory system of our nose.
Yes.
Yes. And so that because what happens is when you start being in tune with your own senses, if you're searching for something, you will feel the sensation to the right or to the left or in the center.
Well, that's the olfactory senses that we have. And once again, those are the things that we should be sensitive to. But over the years, and it's not evolving as if we're evolving into something else, we're losing those senses because we're being inundated with a lot of, well, I said noise pollution, but also sensory interference. So if you imagine where we used to maybe smell the plants, the forests, the trees, people, now we've got 1 million scents, all like manufactured for sweets, for sugars, for, just all of our surroundings. And we've lost sense of that, which birds and other animals use for sense of direction. Dogs are a good example, actually.
Yep. I mean, we have not got any focus anymore. I struggle with focus because of these things. And I notice that everyone is struggling to have time to focus. No one has time anymore. No one has energy anymore. I mean, not everyone, but I'm talking about the direction in which this has gone. There has been less and less time. There has been more and more breakdowns. There has been more and more separation. There has been more and more chaos. There has been more and more of all of these things that are affecting our energy, which is our vibration, which is our frequency.
I
And
absolutely
ultimately,
agree with that. This is what I talk about often as well. And well, it's just the interference, the noise, it's pollution. And it's very hard to try and relay those messages to people because they want, well, it's like anything. When they say the first news that you hear is your truth. So sometimes you'll hear a story and then you'll hear the truth afterwards. And it's very hard to believe the second story, regardless of how true it is. And this is the same with our senses and time. People think that, oh, they haven't got time. And when I break it down for a lot of people, I say, you have got time. I said, think about your day and break it down, and you'll find you've got up to 2 hours free. But everything for you is about this life that you lead, about going to work for 9 to 5, which is a really bad idea. No one should be working, even if you did work 40 hours. Sorry to go off on a tangent here. Work 40 hours in the summertime or at the end of the season when we bring the crops in or something. But 40 hours, even during the periods when we should be hibernating, it's detrimental to human health. And then there's that whole time thing. I haven't got time. I haven't got time. And I've said to people who have rather stupidly written onto their Facebook profile, oh, I just watched the box series of Friends again. And I'm like, that's 170 hours of your life, which you
I
could have
mean,
been learning or dedicating to something else.
there you go. They are not managing their time correctly. Simple. And I am totally with you on that. I do not have watches. I never have done. I don't do watches. I spent a lot of time not even having the time on my phone. You know, I did. I don't know. I didn't even do dates. You know,
I'm guilty, guilty.
so if I had to be somewhere, I just know that that's my appointment. I'm going to be there. You
Yes.
know, so I know whose watch I am on, and it's not man's watch.
Yeah, time's a bit of a bastard, bit of a bitch, to be honest. It's like I it's a funny game I play with myself. If I pick my phone up during the daytime, sometimes I need to do something. I try not to look at the time. It goes to a screen that doesn't have the clock on. It's on the very top right hand, really tiny, and I try not to look at it. If I kind of see it by accident, I'm a little bit dismayed at myself. But typically, what I try to do is not live with the clock. And I say to people, you can carve a life out that way, but you have to
Yeah,
work hard at it. If you work hard at building a life rather than working hard at building the life that you're told to live, then you have a fulfilled life. Regardless of your situation financially, whether you're rich or poor, you'll have a fulfilled life. And a lot of people don't understand that. And it's time, and we live within these constraints. I'm doing a show on time soon, actually. I've got my notes written for it. But England, I forget the actual dates. I did write them down just a few days ago. But we didn't get into time as a general thing until like the late 1700s. And then they started putting clocks into train stations in the UK. And even then, they used to have different times in Leeds and London because they didn't synchronize their clocks. Then in the end, they synchronized their clocks, and it's all been used for capitalism and controlling people. 9 to 5 and business. And we live under these time constraints, and it's really bad for our health. If you don't live by the clock, I think you're a healthier person straight away.
yes, yes, and you know there was something that I thought of as you were saying that it has slipped my mind. Although what I what I'd like to say is that in order for us to prosper in life, we do have to make sacrifices, and if we make those correct sacrifices, and we start to, you know, because they say that time is money. Well, and therefore we have no energy left, and we're eating all this toxic food that is really, really causing us to. It's not our that's not our destiny. This life is not our destiny. I mean, this is to our detriment.
Oh, for
And
sure.
yeah, and so therefore, if we was to make certain sacrifices that are unhealthy for us, you know, to make a brewed choice and to drop certain things out. Like I stopped watching TV when I was 17.
Yeah.
No one knew that I did that. I did that myself. I stopped watching. I never watched films. I never watched TV. I never even listened. When I was working in the barber shop, I never listened to the radio. I was in my own head. You know, I
Yeah.
had to mute that out. And then I ended up, because I was so sensitive to sound, especially words and the things that pass my vision, the things that pass my eyes. Um, I actually stopped listening to words in music. So I would then listen to just music, and that was mainly jazz. I just used to relax with jazz and just let that, you know, let that give me a sense of well-being, and just relax and let the world go by, you know, whilst I am not involved.
I did much the same as you with television as well. I've been off television for about 23 years now. And, you know, the pundits want to argue, oh, yeah, but you watch that program. And it's like, look, I'm a human being and sometimes I want entertainment. So if you count watching like 5 or 6 series over 23 years, and I do watch films, I love films. I try and keep away from Hollywood, though. They've always got their hidden agendas in there. Then I don't watch television. And what that's enabled me to do, it's given me so much free time. When I think about it, people, they get up in the morning, they may put breakfast television on, they'll come home from work, the telly's on straight away, especially with single people, you know, it's a comforter sometimes. They just put it on for voice in the background. And then they'll make their dinner, they'll have something to watch telly on in the kitchen, or maybe you can see their telly from the kitchen. Then they'll sit down and eat their dinner and watch telly, and then they'll do 3 or 4 hours of telly right up until it's bedtime. And while they're doing telly, they're still using the internet now, or not the internet, Facebook and Instagram and so on. And what it does, it calcifies the mind. I'm not into this calcifying the pineal gland thing, but what I mean is the actual mind itself, what we consider to be
Yeah,
the mind. And the example I always use is someone comes up to me and goes, oh, Debbie died. I'm like, oh, Debbie who? And they go, Debbie, Ricky's wife. I'm Ricky who? And they go, you know, and it's a television program.
yeah,
And I'm like, should I be feeling sorrow? We're not extending sympathy or empathy to real life. We're
yeah.
extending it to actors, and television does all that kind of damage for people, I think.
What's the most precious thing? Time.
Yep.
Time is so precious, and it hurts me so much. It's so soul destroying when I'm sitting in a room and everyone is on a screen. And like I'm thinking to myself, well, there you go. All I've got to watch is them. And I try and talk to them, and they're like, yeah, and they're not paying attention. They don't.
Absolutely. Yep.
They don't recognise. They cannot see what they have become, and they cannot see the direction where they are going. And sadly, I have been keeping an eye on this direction since a teenager. Obviously, before 17, but 17 is when I made my choices.
That's very obvious about you that you're someone who has learned from an early time, because some people point out my age and go, oh, yeah, but you're that way because you're an older man now. I go, no, 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 no. You don't just get old and suddenly you know the answers or some answers, or you know you feel this way about the world. It's just that I've maintained that ever since I was a kid, observing the world. I was always very critical as a kid. It was my kind of nickname in the family. It made me cry actually a couple of times because there's 5 of us, so you know they'd call me criticizer, you know, because I was always quite critical. And as I only started owning that when I was in my late 30s. So yeah, I'm a critic. I'm very critical. I couldn't understand why there were art critics or critics of anything at one time, and I thought, no, no, art is a thing. It's we've defined it and said these are the rules if you're going to paint these types of pictures and so on. So therefore, someone can criticise it and say this doesn't quite follow the rules, or oh, it's very good because it breaks the rules, and they're valid. But for me, I'm very critical of us as human beings, and I was critical of me to start off with, to be honest. And once I realised I criticised myself down to such a high level by reading and studying a lot of philosophy and psychology growing up, I still do, and I realised I've looked at myself and I realised I'm a nasty bit of shit human being because of every bit of pollution around me. Not to blame it, but just to say because of my environment. And I change and change and change and keep on changing, trying to better myself and to help those around me who want to better themselves. I don't preach and just say, oh, you should be doing this and that. You know, I'm saying, do what you want. That's the beauty of us being humans. Like, if you want to go out, people kill people. This is what we do as humans. They're not right. They're not wrong. You know, people are nasty and spiteful to each other. But given the choice, if you had to sit in a room with a group of people and you could have people hurting people or just saying spiteful things or being nice, what do you prefer? And everyone
Yeah.
wants a nice option. So I'm saying, well, why don't you be a nicer person? And then we can expand on that and it will just pass. on a global scale, this is my confidence, and we'll all end up being nice to each other.
This can be done. This can be done if everyone can recognise the difference here and how easy that it actually is. I mean, I was, like yourself, criticised. I was called analyse. You know, to the
Nice.
point where my dad said to me, analyse this. Off. You know what I mean? Get out of it. And so yeah, it's really this is really 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 sad to know that we are under this curse.
Yes,
When
of
you
course.
see this, yeah, and when you can see this and we break out of this, as soon as we try and voice this, as you said, it's like telling someone what to do. I have made those mistakes. I have told them, I have pushed this onto them and I've said, look, what you're doing is wrong. You need to stop doing this. You need to do this. You do. And that just made them run, and
That's all part of the process of us learning as well, because
yeah,
when we get new knowledge, you want to tell everyone about it and you want to share it, but you end up preaching. I used to do it as well, like, oh, listen. And then I sat down one day, not even one day, it took a couple of years, I suppose. There's me trying to defend myself. It did take years, whereby I realised I want people to be like me, but I know that's wrong because we're all individuals. So I
yes,
stopped doing it. Every now and then I do it, but maybe less just for to annoy people, like when I'm reality testing. But in the main, I realise some people want to change, and you meet them, and you're a catalyst. So it's okay in that case. But generally, just to go up to people and tell them to change their way of life, it's not a good idea. It just doesn't work. They'll fight back because people are like petulant children. Or at least we think they know how bad a life they're living because they're unhappy. This is why I say sometimes I understand that they're not living a fulfilled life because they're always complaining, but not just complaining as we do about the world, but they're unhappy with their job, with their work, their hours, the system, the government, everything around them. But yet, they're not doing a single thing to make any change to that.
that's yeah, and something that I can sort of make something clear about that. I take like giving advice. I don't like to give advice to anyone. I certainly don't like anyone giving me advice. I really despise when someone says you need to. The second that
Do I? That's what I say.
you know, the second that I hear you need, you haven't got a clue what I need. And if I ask you what I need, I am sure that you will tell me 1,000 reasons why you can't give that.
Oh, beautiful. Well said. I like that. It's so spot on. Absolutely. I'm the same. It's like, do I? Or when someone says to me, like, oh, listen, don't tell no one. But, and I go, no, 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 no. I said, I don't want to walk around holding secrets. If I don't need to know, I don't need to
No,
know. And they're like, but, and I've said, no, no, I really don't need to know. It won't make any difference to me. Every now and then, I must admit, I will listen because it's someone who's really interesting, and they're so far apart from the other people I could mess up in front of. Because I say, look, if you trust me with a secret, it's a secret. So many people do confide in me,
yeah,
but if somebody is a bit of a chatterbox and they say, "Oh, listen, don't tell anyone," but I'm going, no, I just don't want to know because one, I'm
yeah,
going to
don't
likely
tell me
slip
to
up.
tell. Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. If you're going to tell me something, and listen, there's different things. People confide in me about themselves. That relates to. I give you an example. Okay, people have been abused. Okay, and people have opened up to me. In that respect, I totally respect them, and I will not go and share that information with anyone. And I
Yeah,
have had many people confide in me in that respect. Do not come out with something though, and then tell me not to tell anyone. Like I just can't do that. Rather than just don't tell me. Don't tell me something that does not have any. It's not for me. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve you to tell me. It's different if you're confiding in me because you need someone to speak to, and you have no one. That is different.
I
When
love the
you're
way you cover all the avenues. It's beautiful what you said there, about if it doesn't serve me, but you don't stop there. That's where most people stop. If it doesn't serve me, I don't want to know. But you also added, if it doesn't serve you, so you're thinking of the other person. And then thirdly, and this is the way I think, it's like, well, if you need to, then I will listen, because some people need to offload. We all need to offload, you know, and I call that the bus stop therapy, which I talk about sometimes. I mentioned it on my show, whereby sometimes you just need to offload. So if I sat at a bus stop, and this is where it normally happens for me, make eye contact with somebody and say, oh, good morning. And then they respond, you realize, oh, no, they're a listener. And then you, oh, yeah, listen, recently. And then you offload something onto them. And it's sure, almost, well, it dissipates it almost to zero sometimes, or halves it until you can accost the next person. But it has to be the right person. Because last night, again, in the last night show, I was talking about the idea, like, listen, I claim to be like Mr., you know, like good, but I'm not perfect. Sometimes I just don't want to hear someone's story. Someone starts off as like, oh, you ain't going to believe what happened to me at work today. And I'm like, here we go. You know what I mean? And I nip it in the bud. But typically I'm a good listener, because I want to hear people's stories, because everything that they're going through and every challenge, I want to know if I've experienced, or if it's new, and if it's something that I can deal or work with.
Something going on in this mind. If I know I'm looking so hard, I can't find it. Something going on in his head. Look at me, I used to be a funky dread.